What's going on, guys? How you doing? This is part 4 of this 1992 Neil Peart drum clinic in Irvine, California. If you're new here, this is a donation video, by the way. This is for Lucinda, Ray, and Jesse. If you're new here, please subscribe. Check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos. Check it out. If you like the channel, if you want to support the channel, all kinds of ways, you can hit super thanks underneath this video. You can hit me direct in the description. I got PayPal, Venmo, Amazon wishlist, mailing address. Thank you, guys. And now doing donation request videos, just like this video. If you want me to check out a video, if you want me to react to a song, if you want me to talk on a topic, if you have a question, anything, hit me direct, PayPal, Venmo, and in the notes section, leave a description, leave a link. Tell me what you want me to check out, ask the question, give me the topic, and I'll make a video. Just like Lucinda, Ray, and Jesse, they hit me with PayPal. Check out this drum clinic. Absolutely. Totally cool. Let's do it. And this is, and you see how I handle these long. This is like an hour and a half almost clip or something like that. I just split it up. So this is part 4, and we're picking up. He just did the first part of his drum solo. So this is like, I guess, the acoustic part. Because before it was all like triggers, right? Samples. So this is part 4. Let's do this. Bam.
The harp list kind of filling in as we go around, and then I get into the real drum stuff. And basically stay front, back, forth a little bit onto the marimba, tom things, snare things, all that kind of stuff. And then the big wind-up is basically big band samples, which the inspiration came from Count Basie record, and then I ended up making my own samples, so I felt kind of guilty about stealing people's sounds. So I went into a studio and got a synclavier and reproduced the tonalities that I was interested in, created the chords that I wanted, and then assigned them around the pads here and here and here, all in different pitches, so that I could create basically a musical piece as the culmination of the solo. You set? So basically I come to and then...
Cymbal triggering? He lost his glasses, I missed that.
Snare, incidentally, is supposed to be on there. The snare got shut off, but that's essentially the thing. Oh, this little drum I wanted to talk about. Mickey Hart turned me onto this. He had one of those going, and where I was watching them, I was sitting behind, and I kept seeing him coming over and using this as a downbeat. And I thought it was a sample at first, but then I noticed he was doing these little slurs on a kind of a 6/8 thing, and I thought, I've never heard a pad with that kind of sensitivity. And when I was asking about it, he told me, Remo, I guess some of you may know, or all of you may know, but it was news to me. This drum is so tight, you cannot even depress the head. It's got a woven Kevlar head in it that's super strong, and then the snares are exactly under the head. So it was invented, I think, for parade drum use. Beautiful sensitivity on it, and also just makes a nice little acoustic sound rather than a sampled one that I think in future I would be tempted to use as a counterpoint to the snare, or it just makes a great percussive thing. Geddy mentioned it sounds like firecrackers going off, and that was an interesting thing that I've run to, and it's nice too in the middle of a tour. We've been out for 8 months now, so it's nice to have a new sound, to play with, and just to add something to it. I guess basically that's all I want to say formally. Any questions?
Yeah.
Go.
When you're doing fast 16ths, like at the beginning of Tom Sawyer, what kind of technique are you using on your hand?
Doing fast?
Tom Sawyer question.
Oh, I see. thumb forefinger is the firm grip, and then a lot of times it'll be fingers.
This is the technical
Fingers, same with
drum stuff.
Rudimental stuff. I know a lot of drummers use that, a very strong grip. A lot of times the stick is held firmly, but when you want small stuff with great control, you can get it between your fingers there and use your fingers and your wrist almost against each other. I'm honestly not sure if that's what I'm doing there, but I'm guessing. Yeah, the fingers are off a bit, so the fingers, it's like essentially your grip, but sometimes when you need extra speed, you can open up a bit and use your fingers either just as a fulcrum point or to increase the speed of the wrist. Yeah.
Do you feel that in the earlier days of Rush, when you first started out, after Fly By Night, Caress of Steel was my album. I mean, that's what started me.
A lot of people like that album. Really?
I have to give it to you that you're the reason that I'm playing drums now.
Yeah.
But
Lots of people.
do you feel you have more or less artistic freedom? I don't know whether it's because of the record companies or whatever, but...
More. No question about it for us to turning.
Yeah, more.
What's that?
You have more now?
We have had more for a long time.
Yeah.
At that point, we had to fight for every bit of it because we weren't paying our own way, frankly. We were still existing on... Fortunately, we had a record company who didn't pay too much attention to what was going on, and we were lucky. We had 4 albums that didn't, 3 albums basically that didn't do that well and didn't do any better than the previous ones, and we slipped by, where today you wouldn't. A band that got signed, if by an album or 2 they didn't start showing some expanding audience, they wouldn't survive. We slipped through the cracks. 2112 was the one for us that was big enough that we became self-sufficient, and from that day forward, we didn't have to fight anymore. Up till that point, it was like saying, "Oh, you're not going to make us an album with a song, a whole side long." Well, yes, we are. No, you can't. Well, yes, we can. You know, they try. No one can tell you what to do, and yeah, it's insane. It's an insane record, but we yeah. Oh, to the contrary. No, to the contrary. They were quite adamantly against it, and the whole business side of things will be. But you have the choice. I mean, no one can make you do it. That's why I don't like hearing, sometimes you hear an interview with a musician and they say, well, we had the record made the way we liked it, and then the record company came in and said, change it. Well, they can't make you, you know, you can say no. You can always say no. And that's the lesson that I found a lot of bands don't learn, is when to say no. When you're working too hard, when people are exerting pressure on you that they have no right to, no one has the right to tell you how to mold your music. Their business is to sell it. You know, I think music and business, there ought to be a mile-long ditch between them. and I personally observe that ditch, and I don't get involved in the business side of things. And I don't expect them to be in the recording studio. I don't expect them to be there when I'm writing songs or working on drum parts or whatever. It's a big division, but it is a freedom that has to be earned.
That's a good
quote.
And
for us, we had to earn the right to have them leave us alone.
I don't feel like it's like that at all nowadays. It's not.
Well, it's the same now, but like I say, it wasn't easy then. Now no one has the right to say anything, and no one would. You know, in this case, we have been successful over all these years, so no one's going to try and tell us what to do, or if they are, they're going to be pretty stupid. No, not at all. No, a lot of people would like to think so, but no, if you're brave, it just takes courage, you know, to stand up and say, no, we're doing it this way, you know. This is what I wanted to do, and I'm not afraid to get another job, too. You know, but it's a moral point that every musician has to answer for him or herself. And I grew up with people that, for them, all they cared about was making a living playing music. Didn't matter if they played polkas, country music, Broadway shows, they did not care.
Right.
As long as, to them, the point of honor was, I'm making a living playing drums. To me, I didn't understand that, but that's my set of values. To me, I want to play the music I like, and if I have to, I'll work in the daytime at another job and play bars, or I'll be in a band that just plays in the basement. You know, that was my point of honor, but it's different for different people, and you can't judge.
Yeah. The concert's going on. This is just happening.
Stand still in chemistry where you play during the courses. You play on water with toms. It's like a pattern of gases.
Right, I think actually the actual inspiration, I'm the first one to admit that nearly everything I do comes from somewhere else, from some other drummer, from some other style of music. In that case, it was probably around Japan's Tin Drum album. Their drummer, Steve Jensen, used to play a lot of that style with tom-toms and just alternating to the snare as alternative to the backbeat. So it was the kind of thing where I would never imitate what somebody does, but I would think to myself, that's a really cool way to create an alternative that keeps the flow of the rhythm going, but so you're not going, you know, all through every part of every song. So I think around that time there were a lot of drummers, actually Roxy Music too, around that time were doing a lot of things with toms rather than that snare. And it was a kind of thing that was going around that I caught onto and found ways to use myself.
When you're in the studio and they're recording, do you think of the fact that you have to reproduce it live, or do you do it?
Yeah, I do. Some people don't, and they're quite happy to go in and do anything. I have a problem with overdubs for that reason, because I'm going to miss it so much live. So I'm very tempted sometimes. I love playing hand drums, I love playing congas and bongos, but if you put them on, they're either not going to be there live or they have to be there live artificially. So again, that's a value judgment that any musician, drummer or not, has to make, whether you want it to be reproducible. For me, I find it frustrating to play something that's not going to be there live, and because we play live so much, that's another factor too. For a lot of drummers, if you're doing sessions, what does it matter? You're not going to be playing it live, or if you are, it's going to be, you know, there'll be a percussionist there to cover for you or whatever. So that's the choice I've made for myself, that I want to be able to play it live, and I'll find a way to get bongo parts, and whenever I have overdubbed them or something, I'll find a way somehow to play it. You know, I'll ignore another hi-hat part and play the bongo part or something like that. Get back over here, yeah.
Why is this say when you record your albums, you have a lot of freedom. What was your relationship with Peter Collins as far as producer of the band? Did he control? What was his role?
No, for us, it's strictly speaking a co-producer, and that's a semantic distinction, but it's a very important one. It's produced by us and Peter Collins or whoever, just to protect that autonomy and the fact that we have the final say. But we usually choose someone contrary to us. There would be no sense us choosing another rock producer. We chose him because most of his work was in pop music, but he had a great feel for melody and song structure, ideas for things that we'd never done about orchestration and using choirs and all this stuff. So, but mostly we want a guy that sits back and just listens to the song. Between ourselves and the engineer, we know how to get a good drum sound. We know how to judge a performance and make sure that it's the performance that we want. So with Peter Collins on those 2 records and Rupert Hine on the 2 most recent, they've been song guys, both of them with a very strong musical sense, and they don't get involved with all the techniques. They just leave it. You know, if we're messing with a drum sound or a guitar sound or something, they walk away, and then they come back and listen to the song as a whole. It's never a question of control, and if it ever came to a veto situation, we would have it, but I don't think we've ever had to use it. You know, it'd be a case where we would trust his judgment. Obviously, we hire him because we trust his judgment, and we usually give them a bit of a test too, saying that, well, we play them our last record and say, well, what do you think is wrong with it, and what would you have done differently? And that's a very important way of telling what they can contribute. If they can find the flaws that we know are there, and say, well, I would have changed this vocal melody, or I would have set this arrangement up differently, something like that. Those are the valuable things that you want to know. But for the most part, no, they're there to encourage you and to get the best out of you. A kind of producer that's a boss, I think I would have to probably kill. I don't take orders well. It's one reason why I have to be in a band as opposed to being, you know, sort of a hired gun type drummer, because I love working with people. I would never want to be a solo artist. I love working in a musical collaboration, but it has to be a collaboration. I don't want to take orders from anybody. Suggestions I love. And in fact, when we're working on songwriting and I bring some lyrics into the other guys and they say, well, you know, this is okay, but what about this part maybe could be a little better? It's like, yeah, you're right. You know, it becomes an exciting thing rather than bitterness and why is that guy telling me what to do? It's more like, it becomes greater, obviously, a collaboration. So for me, a group situation, I think most solo artists would agree that most ones I've talked to, they wish they were in a group. You know, they see the situation we have creatively, musically, and commercially, and it has to be a musician's dream. We do exactly what we want with people we like, music that satisfies us, and people in a place like this come to see us. So, you know, like I say, solo musicians, even successful ones. Billy Joel said, you know, to Getty one time that he wished he was in a rock band like us, because it's got to be so lonely, just being a solo guy giving the orders as opposed to collaborating on the ideas. Go over here, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, more of a technique question. Back at home, I play a pretty big kit, not quite that size, but like if I'm trying to do like a real fancy, like roundhouse fill, I tend most of the times I'll end up like clicking, like you know, on the side of the drums somewhere along the way. Like when you first started playing, like how'd you go about like the stick control? You know, like trying to hit that 6-inch tom if I was.
I think the eyes closed exercise is a good one. You know, it's one thing that Larry and I go through with the setup. He's got it down so well now that we never have to change a thing, but probably for the first 10 years, I would come in and one day something just wouldn't be quite the angle it should be. And really, I think I should be able to play with my eyes closed. It's easier if you can look at them, but it's a great way to practice, too. A lot of times if I'm trying to work on something, your eyes close anyway in concentration, and you find that the drums do fall under you, and it's messing with your setup too. It should be a natural reach, in other words. I'm not overextending myself for any of these things, and we mess around with where the stands are going to go and change the stands sometimes to get everything in a very natural attitude. The marimba is really hard to get just right because it has to be focused a bit towards me but out of the way of the other things. I mean, all those things are just fine-tuning your setup, and I think, honestly, it sounds dumb, but practicing with your eyes closed is probably a really good idea. Not necessarily fast either. I mean, it's a fundamental truism of all rehearsals: start slow and build it up, you know, and it's certainly for trying to get between drums and all that. Yeah, because and getting your left hand active too is one reason I like having drums over here, because if you're a right-handed drummer, your left hand tends to be, you know, a bit stagnant, and it's hard to get it to want to move around to all these things. So I would make an effort to put a drum over there that I needed and have to get over to it, you know. Yeah.
Remember all your phrasings.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a kind of a mental thought process that that leads one to another, and plus they're constructed that way. So one phrase, for instance, in a first verse will suggest one in the second verse, and it'll be an expansion of them. So that leads me along the right path. I'll know that this fill is an intimation of the one that's coming next. I tend to build a song that way anyway, just in a very architectural way, where the first verse might be the foundation, and the next one will be an echo of that with a little embellishment to it. So I think there's a language. I talked about this with a drummer one time, a drummer friend of mine. We were trying to describe the drummer's language, because you don't see things in notes necessarily, or it's almost, for me, in pictures. I picture a certain fill or a certain figure, and it has a symbol in my head. It's like hieroglyphics. There's a symbolic language I think a drummer can learn that's beyond notation. So when
Okay. That's clip 4. I'm like getting nauseous over this camera work. It's like, it's weird because I see some things and I'm like, okay, whatever, but this, for whatever reason, I mean, you saw me throughout that. I'm getting queasy. I'm like, oh my God, this is too much for me to watch. I need to just like put my eyes down and just listen. Whew. A lot of cool things in there. It's very interesting what he's talking about he knows guys that just want to make a living just playing music and doing this, and other guys that like more like him, where it was like this, or, you know, it has to be like this. And I mean, I've always been, I don't care. I have been the other person. I know that about myself. I've always been the other person. I don't care about the music. I just like music. You know, like, I like, if it, as long as it's good, it's good. We're having a good time. It's fun. You know, like, people come out and play, and I'm making money doing it. Great. You know, like, I don't care about the style of music. I'll play any style. You know, I never had a problem with any of that kind of thing. So that was very interesting to hear him talk about that kind of thing, because there are those kinds of people. You know, the other thing that he said that was really interesting was when he talked about the mile-long ditch between, like, the business people and the artists, the musicians, all that kind of thing. And it's just so not like that nowadays. It's like the artists are the business people now. Like, you almost have to be, you're, like, encouraged to be, all of that. It's not separate. Very interesting. You know, this is just like the times, right? But also that kind of thing, as I imagine you can tell, affects the quality of music, right? It affects the quality of music. That's not to say that there are not great and cool bands out today at all. There really are. There totally are. The problem is you have to find them yourself, usually. You know, you need to find them. You need to search out music, you know. I mean, I was always into doing that kind of thing also when I was younger. When I was a teenager, I would always search out music. That was a big thing, like when the internet came and we got a computer and you can find music. All kinds of things that you'd never heard before that you could just hear. It's not on MTV or VH1. It's not necessarily, maybe it's in the record store, but like you're not like listening to all the records in the record store. You're just like looking at them. When the internet came, you can sample it, you can hear it. Found some band. I don't specifically remember the bands that I found that way. Maybe I feel like yeah, I don't specifically remember. We're talking about a long time ago for me. I know that I did. I remember doing that. So really cool. Really cool. Great. I mean, you know, it's always great to hear. I mean, doing these interviews, hearing these people talk is just a way of getting to know them, digging underneath the surface, behind the music, all of that. So it's really cool. So I dig it. Awesome. Cool, guys. All right, we got one more part. Part 5, and we're done with this. And I really hope that the camera action is just like stay put. Like, whew. That was like way too much for me. I got to take a break. All right, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.